Okay, everybody out there, I'm here to tell you about one thing, and one thing only, is being out in the middle of nowhere, the wind just skittering through your hair. I mean, it feels wonderful. And I'm here to tell you about one of these. This is a 1967 Shovelhead Harley-Davidson. It actually has the two V-twin cylinders on there. And the top of the cylinders, the name that they get the Shovelhead from is actually the top head of the cylinders. They actually look just like the top end of a shovel, which it does state this on www.wikipedia.com. If you put in there Shovelhead Harley-Davidsons, it actually, the top of the cylinder heads looks like the old coal shovels that they used back in the old coal mine days. And the shovel heads had actually replaced the old pan heads, which the pan heads, I mean, is just basically a pan on top of the cylinder head. Nothing to it really. The shovel heads actually gave the Harley-Davidson motor 10% more horsepower and just a little bit more reliability to the whole motor itself. And this is also air cooled. You can see the coils on the outer side of the cylinder. And I want to also say on www.shovelheadbobbers.com, which I didn't know this, but the front end of this motor had actually, it's called a little generator. So this actually tied to the Shovelhead motors is called a generator shovelhead. And the shovelheads is something really very unique, and especially right before the Evolution motors came out in Harley-Davidson, which I do have an Evolution motor Harley-Davidson, which is a 96 cubic inch, but back in, they did this back in 2008, and they upsized the motor, which replaced the old 88 cubic inch Evolution motors. But this one itself has about 73 cubic inches and about 1200 cc in the motor. I mean, it's pretty beefy. Another thing, the transmission case, you can go two ways with this. You can either, like you see here, the belt driven on the transmission, or some people like to keep the transmission case over this and have a chain driven inside here, which you'll have to keep oil in it to keep it lubricated. I also want to say another one of my deals here. I have a book on mastering the ride for motorcyclists, and it's by David L. Hugh. This will give you a very wide, not just broad, wide information about riding motorcycles and being safe. Being safe is one of the main, I mean, it's a big main thing about riding these. And this, I don't know, man, I can't. Other motorcycle enthusiasts, especially Harley-Davidson, and one myself. I actually own a bike, and it's a 2008 Softail Night Train. And this year, even though it is so old, I mean, it's an antique, and it's worth a lot of money. And I wouldn't give it up ever. I'd have it forever. Another thing, the motor. They came out with these motors in 1966, which had replaced the pan heads. And they stopped it in 1984, which was the year I was born. And that's when they started with the Evolution motors. And the Evolution motors is okay, when they started back in the 80s. But back in the 60s, I mean, this was the thing. I mean, I do believe in the old movie Easy Rider. The guy on there, he was actually riding I believe it was a pan head. I don't think it was a shovel head type motor like we have here, but back then I do believe it was a pan head. But I mean, it's the same similar type of bike. It's just a sportster style bike. And the shovel head was just I mean, it was a big thing back in its era. And it just represented an offshoot of the pan head design, really. But, I mean, this is still, of course, I could give a lot more information about this. I mean, you've got, like, your tires. This is kind of like an old style brake disc and old style brake pads, which is not very safe per se. I mean, I wouldn't say it was safe. I would actually use the holes that are actually drilled inside of the disc, the rotor itself. I mean, you know, it gives it more airflow and cools it down. It doesn't lock up your brakes. It won't cause you to endo and flip over and over. And also, a lot of new Harley-Davidson motorcycles, they came with a belt-driven on the rear tire itself too as well. But this one itself is a chain. You know, back in the 60s, this is what they had. That's what they came up with. They didn't come up with the belt-driven until they came up with the Evolution motors, which was 1984. And oh, another cool thing about this bike, also, you can't really see it, but on the other side, this is a kickstart. I mean, that there is just, that's awesome to me. I love that. And you know, most bikes now, they're all electric start, push start. You know, it's really easy, but this one, it actually has a lot of compression inside the motor, and it takes a lot of power to start one of these. And I mean, me myself, I could just stand on this thing and it would not start. I mean, you actually have to jump on it just like a trampoline. And also, another thing, I don't know if you guys know this, but the distinctive noise that a Harley-Davidson gives off is one of a kind. Many foreign manufacturers, motorcycle manufacturers can try to replicate the noise, but they just can't. They try, but they can't. I mean, there's no possible way. When you hear a motorcycle drive by, you can either always tell it's either a foreign motorcycle or it is a American-made Harley-Davidson. And this right here is one of a kind.